Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor claimed my white oak trees were a hazard and cut them down while I was absent. $500,000 Treelaw revenge." A couple of years ago, my wife and I bought a big house on a decent-sized lot. Her father was very sick and had end-stage kidney disease, and we wanted him to be comfortable for however much longer he had left on this planet. The property we chose was on the base of a mountain, and the surrounding area was just absolutely beautiful. The yard was filled with a handful of big blooming flowers and bushes, and towards the street there were several oak trees lined up. If you have ever been hiking or camping in the wilderness and got a whiff of that fresh and clean air and also smelled the trees surrounding you, that is exactly what our new house was like. The neighborhood itself was pretty quiet too, so it was perfect for my father-in-law after he was getting treatment or if he just wanted to rest and enjoy the peace and quiet. I should have known that we were going to have problems with our neighbor as soon as we moved in. The week we moved in, we had our next door neighbors come over and introduce themselves. They were an older couple and they started talking about how they love this neighborhood and they moved here right after retirement. It made sense because of how tranquil it was. But soon enough, the husband spoke up and started asking us about our plans with the huge oak trees in our backyard. I told him that we did not have any plans with them. We were going to maintain them and whatnot, but it's not like we were going to tear them down. Actually, my father-in-law really enjoyed the oak trees. If he wanted to, he could go outside and sit in the shade from the oak trees with our dog. It was great. He started telling me about the previous owners and how they never cut the branches. According to him, one night a tree branch fell after a windy winter storm blew through the town and it blocked the street for 2 days. As much as I hated to doubt the story or argue, it was my impression that everything on the property was pretty well maintained. As a matter of fact, as he was telling me this, I could not help but peek over his shoulders and notice how neat and tidy the trees were. Also, I had never heard of any issues with the trees from the previous owner, which yes, we did meet one of them. Anyways, I just politely let our neighbor know that we will make sure nothing like this happens again. We were planning to hire a gardener/landscaper anyways, so there was no need to be worried. A few days later, my father-in-law was coming home after a dialysis treatment and said he saw the neighbor in our yard seemingly looking at our trees. Most of the time, myself or my wife took him to any doctor's appointments or treatments that he needed. Every now and then though, he would have to use the medical transport van. He said that when our neighbor saw him, he defensively said that he was just admiring the beauty of our trees. This was immediately weird to me, because was not he complaining about them a few days ago? I tried to ignore it, thinking that it was just my neighbor trying to be weird or intimidating. Anyways, around this time we had also gotten news that my father-in-law was doing a lot better health-wise. He had lost a few pounds, his blood pressure was going down, and the dialysis treatments were improving his quality of life. Obviously, he was still going to need treatment and have this disease unless he got a kidney transplant, but it was quite nice seeing him do so much better. We decided to take him away on a little weekend trip. It was going to be a 4 to 5 day trip and we were going to take him to a tourist town that was a couple of hours away from us. Even though a trip like this was not a big deal to my wife and I, it was important for my father-in-law to be able to travel even if it were for a couple of days. He was really excited and honestly, it was a great feeling watching him be so excited over something. We didn't know that our neighbor was going to take advantage of us being gone for 3 days. You see, I honestly did not think anything would happen to our house while we were gone. We lived in a very safe neighborhood. I mean, we locked the house up and everything, but we don't have security cameras. On our little trip, we had so much fun. My father-in-law got to see some tourist spots and pick up a few souvenirs. But on the 3rd day, he was pretty tired and ready to go home. We drove home since we were only a couple of hours away, but imagine our surprise when we almost drove past our own house because we did not recognize it. And guess why we did not recognize it? Because all of our oak trees were missing, they were completely cut down. I immediately knew that my scumbag neighbor had something to do with it. Who else would have done something to such beautiful trees? We didn't see any cars home next door, so we immediately went to talk to some neighbors to see if they knew anything. Bless our neighbors across the street, because they had actually gotten video footage of our scumbag neighbor instructing a landscaping crew on what to do. I don't know what documents he faked or what he told them, but he had them convinced that he was the new owner and wanted these trees removed because they could be a safety hazard in the winter. I was so livid. This was our dream house where my father-in-law was going to live out the last of his days, even if he did get a kidney transplant, and it felt like a piece of the property had been ripped away from us. That same day we returned home, I started making phone calls to local lawyers and law offices to see what I could do about this. He did not have permission to be on my property, and he obviously did not have permission to touch or alter my property in any way. I got in connection with a good lawyer and gave him all of the details I had. My neighbor was kind enough to testify as a witness in court, and my neighbor was found guilty of property damage as well as having to pay $500,000 to have all of the oak trees replaced. Although they were not the original oak trees, I was glad to have those beautiful trees back on my property. And what makes it even better is that in the end our neighbor had to sell his house because he could not afford to make the payments he owed us. I was not complaining though. He was a grumpy old man who could not even appreciate the beauty of the neighborhood and area we lived in. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say, no matter how much you dislike the trees your neighbor has, don't ever try to mess with someone's trees. It can end very badly for you. I hope the neighbor in question learned his lesson. Either way, if you still enjoy the stories about crazy neighbors and Treelaw, then I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is entitled Abusive Neighbors. I live in what used to be a quiet rural area, that is, until entitled people Mia and George, not their real names, moved in behind me. Their house is at least 200 feet behind mine and is pretty well obscured by trees. Or obscured, I'm not sure. Either way, Mia and George are apparently used to doing whatever they want regardless of the law or the impact on others. Our property is zoned agricultural with limits on the number of animals and requirements for waste management. Naturally, they have 3 times the allowed animals and pile up crap wherever they want. The smell is atrocious. Mia cannot communicate without screaming and allows her 4 dogs to bark constantly day and night. I suspect mental issues because she uses her gas blower 4 to 6 hours a day right around her house. Several times I peeked and she was blowing nothing but dust. This woman needs to get a job or a hobby instead. When they first moved in, I took milk and cookies and introduced myself. Since then they have completely fenced themselves in and refuse to interact civilly, so I cannot talk to them about the issues. Their English is quite limited as well. 6 weeks ago, hubby called the fire department because they were burning plastic, causing a toxic grey haze that covered our property. Mia stewed and screamed about this until last week, when she called the fire department because hubby was smoking cream cheese and veggies on the smoker in our front yard. And by the way, they are like 200 feet behind. The smoke was rising, not covering the ground or affecting anyone except Mia's entitled ego. Mia was slapped with a misdemeanor and got a real good talking to in her native language. For some reason, it's been mighty quiet over there ever since. And the next one is a malicious compliance story, and it is titled Got My Money Back Thanks to MC. On one summer Saturday afternoon, I was moving to a new flat. There was no parking lines in front of my new building, but loading was allowed, so I left my car there and started to run up and down the stairs with boxes of my belongings. After the last heavy box landed on the floor of my new flat, I really needed a drink, so I started to rummage the boxes looking for a glass or a cup. One thing led to another, and when at 2 AM I finished unpacking, I went to bed for a well-deserved sleep. My building had 2 entry doors, so it was only Tuesday morning when I used the same doors again and bumped on my car parked right in front of them. Damn, I forgot to move my car after I emptied it out of my boxes. Let's hope I did not get a ticket. I thought. There was nothing on my windscreen, no letter came to me over the next couple of weeks, so I just sighed in relief and forgot about all of this. A few months later, a strange letter came. Glasgow City Council informed me that I have not paid some fine and that if I don't pay it now, I will have to pay 50% extra. I had no idea what it is about, so truthfully, I answered by asking what it is all about, as I cannot recall any unpaid tickets. In the next letter, they have informed me that the ticket is for parking my car on a double yellow line. I answered again truthfully that I don't park on double yellow lines. As a former trucker, I'm aware how annoying it is for drivers of bigger vehicles, not to mention that I would like a fire engine to get to my place in case there is a fire. They answered that they have proof, and I then politely asked them to show me that proof. In the next letter, there was a picture of my car clearly parked on double yellow lines. I instantly recalled the situation described in points 1 and 2. I've seen no reason to play fool if I was clearly in the wrong, so since there was a copy of the ticket attached to the picture, I've decided to pay the fine instantly. It was written on the ticket that if I pay within 28 days from receiving the ticket, note from the day of its issue, then I only need to pay £30. I wrote a letter apologizing for my behavior, explaining that it was a genuine oversight, but since I was in the wrong, I am to pay a ticket, so I attached a check for £30. The check was cashed, and yet some weeks later I've received yet another letter demanding to pay £60. It claimed that since I failed to pay and it is now more than 3 months, I have now to pay 50% extra. I answered that I paid within 28 days from the moment I saw the ticket for the first time, I got a 50% discount, and that they've already cashed a check, so it is surely some mistake. They answered again that they count this £30 towards the total of 90, so I still have £60 to pay. I answered again that I paid within 28 days from the date the ticket was delivered to me, so we should be square. I was lectured that if the ticket is put behind the windscreen wiper, it is considered to be delivered properly. I expressed my doubts, pointing out that if it was delivered properly, I would be aware of its existence. I pointed out that a ticket that is placed behind a windscreen of the parked car can be removed by anyone, so this is hardly safe and reliable method of delivering important documents. They explained to me the following in detail. The ticket that was placed behind a windscreen wiper of the car registered to me can be considered as a ticket delivered to me. As removing such ticket is an offense, I cannot expect them to act on the basis of assumption that such ticket would be removed. In my answer, I politely thanked for this knowledge, admitting that it is new to me. I also informed them that I've put a check for £60 into an envelope and I placed it behind a windscreen wiper of the bin lorry. This time it took them longer to respond. Response can be summed up very shortly. What the hell? What bin lorry? I was happy to explain. I quoted their previous letter and pointed out, since this bin lorry was registered to Glasgow City Council and putting important documents behind a windscreen wiper of a vehicle belonging to the recipient is considered to be a proper way of delivering them, I therefore consider the check to be delivered properly, and I hope that this will help to bring the matter to its end. Next answer arrived much quicker. It is probably due to this rush that was slightly below the standards expected from the official letter sent to a taxpayer by a city council. To sum it up, the letter stated that one should not place important documents behind the windscreen wiper of a vehicle as it can be easily stolen. There was also some doubt risen about my sanity. I was happy to assure them that I feel perfectly well both on the grounds of my body and my psyche. I reminded them that stealing is a crime and therefore we should not act on the basis of assumption that someone would steal their check from under the windscreen wiper of the bin lorry. I guess they were no longer amused. The next letter contained plenty of giant red letters and informed me that the matter will be now dealt with by sheriff officers and messengers in arms. But if I don't like it, I can always appeal to a parking tribunal in Edinburgh. Of course I did not like it, so I appealed to the parking tribunal in Edinburgh. The parking tribunal was initially unable to understand the issue because I paid my ticket. I agree that my car was parked on double yellow lines and I still want to appeal. I then explained to them that I'm not willing to contradict the ticket itself, but I'm not happy with the fact that I am charged extra money, even despite the fact that I paid a heavy fine within 28 days from receiving a ticket. They finally agreed to consider the case and set a date during one of their sittings in Glasgow, thus sparing me the trouble of traveling to Edinburgh. About a week before said date, I've received a letter from Glasgow City Council. It said that my ticket was cancelled. Now that's a different story. I rushed to write a letter in which I pointed out that if the ticket had to be cancelled, then I assumed it was issued wrongly and therefore I paid money I should not have paid. I demanded my £30 to be returned to me. I never got any more letters regarding this matter, but on one sunny summer Sunday, I logged into my internet banking to discover a payment of £30 from Glasgow City Council. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say that is textbook perfect malicious compliance on a city council. So if you ever want to get malicious compliance on a city council, then this is the story to follow. The next one is entitled Brother. So a little backstory. I, 33 female, have been helping out my younger brother James, 30 male, for the past 6 years. He did not have enough money for an apartment rent on his own and he did not feel comfortable roommating with a stranger. So we split my 2-bedroom apartment and it has helped me save for so I can buy my own place soon. But he went through struggles, lost his full-time job, got really out of shape from just sitting at his computer all day. Thanks to the pandemic, the government paid him to sit at home for over a year. Now he is having trouble keeping a job and is just about broke. He is also the worst roommate ever, never cleans up or helps around the house at all, and he has been short or late with rent several times this year. I'm getting kind of fed up. I'm getting married come the new year and feel it is time we go our separate ways. When I told him I was getting married and moving out eventually, he said, "I would rather keep our situation and just move with you, split the rent 3 ways." I told him no, not only do I not want to live with him anymore, but he is untrustworthy with rent and we don't want to be stuck with a more expensive place if he cannot afford his part. He got mad at that and is now being all huffy. Our mom claims he ranted to her that if I don't take him with me, he would be homeless. Mom does not want him moving back to her place either, but asked that I take him with me, since she doesn't want him to be homeless. I'm like, what? I'm not his keeper. It's his own fault for his situation and I've been very forgiving. I could have kicked him out for all the times he was late on rent and our own mom won't take him back, but she is asking me and my fiancé to look after him instead. How stupid is that? He is 30 years old, not a child, and I'm not his mother. I am done looking after him as if he is my responsibility. I don't get how he thinks it is rational to demand that I bring him with me when I'm getting married and wanting to start my own life. And yeah, ripe stars, I'm curious what you think about this story with the entitled brother. Do you think that OP is the a-hole for not taking care of his 30-year-old brother or not? Let us know what you think in the comments. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.